Irony, ladies and gentlemen, has been murdered. And I have a suspect. And I have the crime being committed on camera. Lara Trump has killed irony in the video that you're about to watch. And initially I laughed. Then I got upset. Then I laughed again. It was very emotionally confusing, as happens a lot preparing for the show. And just brace yourself for impact. Because Lara Trump here is confident enough to say that she would never accept a job. No, sirree, Bob. That she wasn't the most qualified person for it. You know what? Do me a favor, she says, and don't give me a position unless it's only because I'm the most qualified person. And not, say my last name. Now, she is the co-chair of the Republican National Committee. Because she's the most qualified person or because her last name's Trump? Well, we'll have that discussion after playing this brutal to watch clip of Lara Trump on her podcast, because apparently podcasters can't just be the ones who podcast. Now we have to have every single person with a prominent name needs a podcast. All right. Welcome to the space, Lara.
Do me a favor out there. Don't you ever give me a position or a title or anything of the sort, a job, whatever it is, based on anything other than the fact that I deserve that spot. I'm the best candidate for that position. I'm the best person to do that job. I don't want it because it is totally insulting to people. So
I wrote on X, Lara Trump, who only got her job as co-chair of the RNC because of her last name, says she would never accept any job unless she was the most qualified person for it. Lara might have to resign now. And I don't know how you can say that and not feel weird about it. I would, don't even offer me a job. Because if you offer, I'll accept it. But don't offer me a job unless I'm the most qualified person. Unless it's the job that I currently have. But for future, this is a rule. I'm making the rule now. And it's sort of, you get grandfathered in, right? So because I already have the job when I made the rule, we good. But any future jobs that I could, consider, I would never accept just because my last name is now Trump after being married to Eric Trump. And that's the only reason she has the job as the RNC co-chair. It's just ridiculous. And while we're on this topic, I have other clips to show you of Lara Trump. But first, the Associated Press reports, the direction of the Republican National Committee is clear from the last name of its new second in command, Trump, most qualified person. My number one goal is making sure that Donald Trump is the 47th president, said Lara Trump, the RNC co-chair, in an Associated Press interview. Going to really quickly pause your viewing of this video to ask you to subscribe to this YouTube channel if you want to help us continue to grow by clicking that subscribe button. And if you want the daily bonus show, you want to go a step further, click the join button below as well. It's one more step in solidifying Trump's hold over the Republican Party. The daughter-in-law of the former president has wasted no time in rebranding the typically staid committee in Trump's image, embracing her own version of his pugilistic politics and brash management style in ways that affirm his sway over the Republican establishment. The RNC, as we've talked about, has fired dozens of longtime staffers and sought alliances with election deniers, conspiracy theorists, and alt-right advocates the party have previously kept at arm's length. And one of the things that came out of this process of firing a bunch of people and then hiring other more MAGA loyalists is the application process apparently included your stances on the 2020 election, meaning not who you wish had won, but do you believe in Trump's election lies? And that shows you that the Republican Party establishment, sometimes people will say establishment Republicans to denote sort of your more Mitt Romney. That's not it anymore. Your more moderate Republican is not the establishment of the Republican Party. MAGA is. And that's frightening, but it's the truth, and that's shown in the RNC's current structure and one of their co-chairs. And then you have this from MSNBC to give a sense of how this pro-Trump, MAGA, fully, everything's about getting Trump reelected type approach, how it's impacting some of these state parties. When infighting in the Colorado Republican Party, I think that was the clip that was shown of moderate and MAGA people fighting each other, recently spilled out into the press. The conflict wasn't over ideologies or values. It was an argument about money, or rather, the lack of it. Like other state Republican parties nationwide, Colorado's GOP is feeling the pinch of the national party's Trump-centric fundraising plan. Now those internal party cracks are becoming embarrassing public fractures. A growing number of state Republican operations are either broke or perilously close to it. Last year, the Minnesota Republican Party reported having only 53 buckaroonies in the bank. That's not 53,000, 53 in the bank, and over $330,000 in debt. In January, Michigan's Republicans faced bankruptcy amid a brutal MAGA leadership fight. So much for being the party of fiscal responsibility. Absolutely correct. And with that being said, so the point is that the MAGA approach to leading, even just the financial side of things, is leading to some tough financial situations for a lot of people. Maybe not Trump. He likes the fact that he's getting his bills paid by donors, and his legal troubles are being invested in by the party, but not so great for other people. Here is more from Lara Trump.
Watley, the chairman, and I have been at the RNC, and obviously we've been working really hard. I think the most recent thing to report is that we are working hard on election integrity, and we just announced last week that we have 100,000 committed people who are going to be trained as poll workers. So, Eric, leading up to this election, I think we can all see the most important thing, aside from getting out the vote, is protecting that vote. We now have the ability at the RNC not just to have poll watchers, people standing in polling locations, but people who can physically handle the ballots. We want people all across this country.
Can we do this? I want to hear. This is really fascinating to me. So you have 100,000 people who are they? I think I saw paid at one point, but whatever, irrelevant. But so they will be stationed inside polling places. I didn't even know you could do that. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So there was a moratorium for about 40 years on the RNC actually training people to work in these polling locations and the tabulation centers where the mail-in ballots come in. And last year, the judge who implemented that passed away, so that was lifted. And that gives us a great ability as we head into what I assume everyone understands is the most important election of our lifetime. So we have this ability. These are volunteers, most of these people. Protectthevote.com. If people want to join our team, we train them to actually work in these polling locations. And think about how much better off that makes us in terms of transparency, Eric. We all know 2020 was not all on the up and up. People had a lot of unanswered questions. We can never repeat that. So in addition to these poll workers, we're going to have lawyers in all the major polling locations across.
Yeah. So a couple of things on that. Then I'll show you a kind of frightening clip of Lara Trump at a speech. But here it's playing into the election conspiracy. You already have the ability to have, whenever votes are being counted, you have this even split of Democrats, Republicans who are doing it, and they get to watch each other. We already have that process in place, which is part of why some of these election conspiracy theories don't make much sense. But also, I do want to say, if you're going to be bragging about how you're doing all these things to further election integrity, you best not talk about the election being stolen if Trump loses, okay? Because apparently you have extra people there and they're all going to be watching. And if you still say that Biden was able to steal the election, then that's on you, okay? Obviously, it won't actually have been stolen. But even if it were, I feel like Biden just gets to be president because he outsmarted you after all this work. I'm kidding. Biden's going to beat you fair and square. But then the poll, so that's my point about poll workers. There's already a process to select people, Republicans, Democrats, and they get to watch and oversight, and all of that happens. And the thing that she mentioned too was sort of just poll watchers, and this is something that they're getting interested in now, which is people just showing up and sort of seeing if they see anything suspicious, but they can't go in the rooms, obviously. Any random person can't go and mess around with people's private information. So they're just around the polling places. And that is really scary because it can be voter intimidation, a bunch of MAGA folks showing up and acting like they're there to enforce the law, even though they're just a random person, Joe Schmo, for lack of a better phrase, and then sort of scaring people, intimidating people into leaving. And maybe that's what she's talking about. Regardless, she's putting a lot of resources into something. And this is a part of what the previous article is referencing that isn't going to yield results on winning the election. So you're paying people, you're training people to do all this different stuff to prevent the election from being stolen, to stand around and make sure if they'll, spot a Dominion employee, they'll just tackle them or something. And so you have that and investments being made there instead of in voter turnout and instead of in campaign ads and state parties and all of that. And that, I think, is what's going to drive MAGA into the ground with the Republican Party attached to it. Then here's the clip I referenced.
No, Donald Trump gets in for 4 more years. The jig is up for them. The gloves are off. There are no holds barred here. He is going full throttle. He's not worried about winning another election. It's 4 years of scorched earth when Donald Trump retakes the White House.
It's so weird. So weird, for lack of a better term. Scary, obviously, but weird. And what I mean is, when I tell people about the prospect of a second Biden term, I go, hey, let me tell you about the Infrastructure and Jobs Act of 2022. And maybe we could get something like that more of that. Or talk about healthcare expansions that maybe we could see. And obviously, it's going to feel nice to be past the democracy threat, hopefully. And Trump hopefully would fade into political irrelevance. So that's nice. But let me tell you more about investments in job creating, right? Investments in schools, how we could further decrease crime, how we could further improve our economic situation, increase wages for people, protect individuals' right to organize in their workplace, and try to bring back nationwide reproductive rights, and a policy conversation. And it's just sort of about everyone doing. I want MAGA to do better. I want everyone to do better, except for Trump. I want him to do poorly, and maybe Marjorie Greene too. But everyone else can do well. And their excitement, their pitch is Trump's gonna go scorched earth. You're gonna regret ever knowing the name Donald Trump. And Trump's talking about retribution. It's just a very weird contrast. Sort of the we can all have a better tomorrow versus I'm going to burn down your tomorrow and laugh about it. Let me know what you thought of that segment in the comments.